Welcome everyone to the Global Nutanix User Group webinar, Running Kubernetes in Production with NKP. Thank you for joining us from around the world. Today, we're diving into why Kubernetes alone isn't enough for running containers in production, and how the Nutanix Kubernetes platform enables you to scale out cloud-native applications effectively anywhere. Plus, we'll see live demos of NKP's Day 2 operations and GitOps in action. But before we start, special call out to our friends in Ireland. The Ireland NUG is hosting a watch party today, and it's great to see everybody virtually. Ronnie Hamilton, the NUG leader, great to see you, and thanks for doing this. Our speakers today are Nimal and Kapil. Both are technical marketing engineers specializing in NKP and cloud native at Nutanix. And we also have Jose Gomez, Director of Technical Marketing Engineering, leading innovations in NKP and cloud native. But before we start, I want to pose a question in the chat. And this is where you get to exercise your emoji skills. Who here has deployed a Kubernetes cluster before? Drop a rocket ship in the chat if you have, and if you haven't, drop a penguin for your learning, and I'll give that a few seconds to go. Wow, a lot of people have deployed a Kubernetes cluster. Oh, it looks like it's about 50-50 at the moment. Great. Thanks everyone for doing that. Get ready for valuable insights and practical takeaways. And remember, 2 lucky attendees will win a Nutanix Yeti Rambler. So stay tuned to the end. We're going to announce that on the Nutanix community Twitter handle at Nutanix Nation. So be on the lookout for that. So with that, let's get started. Nimal, Kapil, take it away.
All right. Thank you, Angelo. Thank you for the lovely introduction. I'm actually going through the comments and I see a bear. So someone is doing some foul play there. All right, so let me quickly share my screen. All right, I hope you guys can see the NKP screen. And again, thank you all for joining us here today. So we want to take the next 1 hour to talk about Nutanix Kubernetes platform, which is NKP. This is a product that we announced roughly 4 months back. A very high-level one-line summary would be complete fleet management of all the Kubernetes clusters running anywhere, on-prem in a data center, on the public clouds, at the edge, with data services included in it. So a little bit about me. My name is Nimal Kunnath. I work in the technical marketing engineering team. In my role, I primarily focus on implementing cloud-native solutions for our customers, and NKP is a core focus of my day-to-day work. And I'm joined by my wonderful colleague, Kapil.
All right. Thanks, everyone, for taking the time out of busy Tuesday, I know. And I'm Kapil Anandani. I'm tech marketing engineer for Nutanix Kubernetes platform and cloud-native technologies. I'm based out of Bangalore, India. I'm excited to be here to show you guys what cool things we are doing at Nutanix in Kubernetes space. Just some housekeeping stuff. If you have any questions, you can ask directly in the chat and they'll be answered live. We will also have a Q&A in the end to answer any live questions or that are remaining. Over to you, Nimal.
All right, thank you, Kapil. So a quick look at what the plan is for today. So we want to kick this off talking about a few challenges that organizations and our customers run into when you think about running Kubernetes in production. After that, we want to introduce NKP. What is NKP? Why does NKP exist? What does NKP solve? Then we will dig a bit deeper into the components of NKP, the whole CNCF ecosystem, the projects that build the NKP product. And I'm very excited about the fleet management feature about NKP. So we'll be diving deep into that. And to support that, we'll have a couple of exciting demos as well. All right, so to get started, I wanted to talk about some big trends that we see in the Kubernetes community today. So Kubernetes has been around for about 10 years now. this is the 10th year running. There's a growing adoption of this technology. We have a lot of analysts talking about it. There's so many conferences, events, meetups around to share information on how folks are running Kubernetes in production, right? So by the way, this slide is from an independent survey. So if you look at the first trend here, most people, a vast majority, 92% of the people who were surveyed say that developers should not be running Kubernetes clusters. But there's still a high number of them building their own clusters, right? So now if you think about it, this evolved from the DevOps model. Like, so earlier we had a centralized IT model where you had clear separation of roles between developers and IT. So IT had more control, but the downside was that devs they actually get to focus on building the application code, the business logic part, right? But they had really no flexibility and no self-service, right? And that's how the DevOps model emerged from it, right? So now you have your individual dev teams, your developers, your DevOps teams running their own Kubernetes clusters. Now, obviously, this gave them more speed, more agility in getting their apps to market quickly. But the flip side was that, again, they had to manage and operate their own infrastructure, their own clusters, right? And this is what led to the evolution of a platform team, right? Or platform engineering, if you're familiar with it. I'm sure a few of you might be working in similar roles today. So a platform team combines the best of both worlds, right? Your developers get that freedom of self-service for the infrastructure needs, while IT still gets to maintain that, retain that control, right? So the second trend that we see, and sorry, there was a 1 second delay there. The second trend that we see that is a majority of customers from the survey say that they do not want to run both VMs and containers on separate infrastructure, but rather they want to manage it together. Now, I'm sure most of you in this call are running VMs, virtualized environments today, and the benefits of virtualization were very clear, right, as you move away from bare metal servers. Now, as you start adopting containers and Kubernetes, you want to be able to run that on the same infrastructure, right? Maintaining two separate silos of infrastructure can lead to a lack of flexibility. The third stat here is that we see that a lot of containers today, or most containers, require storage, persistent storage. Now, if you think about it, a few years back, in the initial days of Kubernetes, it was meant primarily for stateless applications, because the tech was not really mature enough. But now we see more and more workloads, stateful workloads being onboarded to Kubernetes. In fact, you have entire data on Kubernetes days at popular events like KubeCon. A couple of other interesting stats there, like a lot of companies they want to run Kubernetes on multiple clouds, multiple locations. Also, almost everyone looking at running AI would want to run it in Kubernetes. All the new apps that are being written today will be run on Kubernetes. So to give you a high-level summary of the challenges that I spoke about, right? Developers managing Kubernetes infrastructure is a waste of time. It creates a lot of complexity. So this is best done by other teams, such as the platform team. Running separate silos for VMs and containers is inefficient and expensive. Ideally, you would want to have a single platform that can serve both. Also, storing data for containers often involves multi-platform and multi-vendor solutions. So if you think about it, you're buying storage from a storage vendor, your virtualization from someone else, and your Kubernetes from a different vendor, right? And this is not going to scale. So you have to figure out how to stitch all of them together. And this is really where Nutanix comes in, right? So Nutanix has been in the business of delighting customers with a single operation model, no matter where you're running your apps and data. We have been in the market for about 15 years, and we really bring that cloud-like operation model to your on-prem to on-prem in your data center. And we started out with running VMs and networking and security as part of your Nutanix cloud infrastructure on-prem. And then after that, we gave you this ability to burst your workloads to the cloud. So now you're extending to the cloud and you can run, manage, and operate your apps and data with a common operation model, right? On-prem and on the public cloud. And on top of that, we added file storage, object storage, database as a service. And now what we really want to do with NKP is we want to bring that ease of administration to Kubernetes itself. And best of all, we want to do this from a single pane of glass. Now, one thing I really wanted to highlight here is that NKP is not a 1.0 product. The product that we launched in August is actually NKP 2.12. This is a result of an acquisition. So Nutanix acquired a company called Day2IQ almost an year back and integrated their product into our stack. So now this company has been in the market for more than 5 years. They're an early pioneer in the cloud native space. And they're major proponents of key technologies like CSI, the container storage interface. And there's one more thing I wanted to call out is that now some of you, I know we have a few existing Nutanix customers in this call, and you may be wondering about NKE or Nutanix Kubernetes Engine. So this is a Kubernetes solution that we have been offering for the past few years. And the plan is that NKP will be replacing NKE. And so if you're using NKE today, we have published a migration guide. It is actually available in the portal since yesterday. So it would really benefit you if you would take a look and see how you would want to plan your migration from NKE to NKP. All right. So now to talk more about NKP specifically, let me hand this off to Kapil.
All right. Thanks, Nimal. If I can share my screen.
All right. Let me stop sharing. Yes.
All right. Just give me a heads up if you see the presentation.
Yes, I see it.
All right. So Kubernetes is often seen as the platform for modern cloud native applications. It is incredibly powerful but brings a lot of complexity with modern application architecture. And what does a CXO sees? Like let's think from a CXO perspective that Kubernetes is some kind of a magic bullet that will solve all their problems for getting out new applications, features out in the market faster than competitors. But let's think from the developer's perspective also. What does a developer need from Kubernetes? Needs an automated scaling, which allows application to adjust resources based on demand without manual intervention. A developer needs consistent environment all the way from local testing to production. Thereby, it reduces deployment issues, shoots up the reliability, and so on. Developer want that, he wants to more focus on writing the code, knowing that something is being managed or the infrastructure is being managed efficiently in the backend. And moreover, it would be cherry on the cake that if it has integration with all the DevOps practices like Ansible, Terraform, that supports faster and more reliable software delivery through automated pipelines. But what does it take to build a successful cloud native platform? Is it just about Kubernetes or is it just about deploying the microservices? Now think of Kubernetes as a powerful engine for a supercar. But is engine enough to drive that car? No, you need nice wheels, you need a good body, you need a good suspension. And same thing with Kubernetes. For Kubernetes, a whole ecosystem must be tested, validated, and managed efficiently. Numerous teams have to come together to work hard to make every microservice application function seamlessly, all the way from cloud administrators that are needed for designing and maintaining infrastructure, supporting these applications and ensuring they are scalable, resilient, cost effective, to security engineers Because microservices bring a lot of footprint. They have a lot of moving parts, each with its own vulnerabilities. So security needs to be tight and adaptable to keep up with the evolving threats in while you're deploying it. And all of these teams face ongoing challenges strategically, selecting the best tools and infrastructure to build and operate platform that can meet the demands of developers. It's a delicate balance of performance, security, reliability, all while trying to stay ahead of technological changes that's been happening in the modern world. And only few companies have done that so far. When I say few companies, these are multi-billion-dollar companies like Google, Amazon, who have no resource shortage and just spend billions on R&D. Now, to summarize, you need a platform that works and scales effectively as the organization grows, ensuring that the developers have the resources to build and deploy applications without unnecessary delays or risks. Now, when we talk about Kubernetes, it's important to remember that it's just engine, right? It's just a small piece of puzzle. But when we want to run applications at scale in production, a full-fledged cloud-native platform is needed. It comprises of many moving parts, each with its own specific role. And these moving parts handle everything from networking and storage to security and orchestration. And importantly, every one of these component needs to be thoroughly tested, validated, maintained, and upgraded to ensure that the platform is reliable and scalable. And this difficulty is caused by large number of open source projects that are there in CNCF landscape, especially those paid products. It's a vast and ever growing ecosystem of tools, platform, technologies, I think more than 1500 now. And that can be overwhelming to manage and integrate. And this can become a significant barrier to success, even for the most capable teams. And all this difficulty, it can turn into what might seem like, hey, I started this open source CNCF project by saving the cost of, my company, but it can turn into a risky and resource intensive endeavor. What does NKP bring on the table? Now, Nutanix Kubernetes platform is an enterprise-ready, opinionated stack of upstream Kubernetes. And when I say upstream, it's pure upstream Kubernetes, no forks, no proprietary, and the best of CNCF projects ready for production. It is everything that a platform engineer needs to build a secure, reliable, scalable platform to run containerized application and its data at scale with true portability and no lock-in. Now, this allows customer to take advantage of the state-of-the-art innovation in application development, production technologies, all the way up, and including Git operations. And we'll see in a demo today, and Nimal will show you how GitOps work in NKP platform. And trust that everything will work seamlessly. Now, with over 22 best of the breeds open source projects integrated into NKP, you get a comprehensive suite of functionalities and capabilities that are right here. Now, I'm not going to go each one of these just to be conscious on time, but you get this, functionality designed to meet the need of platform engineers in cloud native landscape. And to give you a clear picture again, let's all these functionalities, let's break them down into three fundamental use cases that is aligned to what I'll show you in a few minutes, that what customers most need. It's cluster provisioning. NKP uses an open source project called Cluster API that handles the lifecycle management of Kubernetes cluster. And next is the day two operation, like how does the observability stack works? Like if there is a microservice or application performance issue, how can I troubleshoot? Where should I go? Is it just digging the logs? How can I get those, nice graphical representations of, where the issue is happening? And third is fleet management. Like how can you onboard new clusters into application, which has, a lot of demand, let's say during the Christmas year or when it is not using much resources, during the rest of the year. So how do you automate those kind of things? And by focusing on these three core use cases, Nutanix ensures that you have the tools and support needed to handle the complexities of cloud native environment with confidence and ease. Now let me show you a quick demo of cluster provisioning and observability stack. So I'm going to switch my screen here. And if someone can confirm they see a Kubernetes dashboard.
Yes.
Okay, thanks, Nimal. So let's just assume you are a platform engineer who already has an NKP management cluster and wants to deploy a new application or a new cluster for its hybrid cloud application. So as soon as I come into the management dashboard in NKP, I see, this cluster or this management has, this NKP cluster has 4 clusters and it has workspaces and all these applications, Grafana, they come out of the box. Now, workspaces, you think of workspaces like a way of creating group of cluster for a specific purpose. And I want to deploy my application in this hybrid cloud workspace. So if I go to hybrid cloud workspace, now I see that here the clusters are 0, and we're going to deploy just one right now. So we are going to actions and we see we have an option to get and add a cluster. So I can create a cluster either using, easy filling a form just on the web page itself, or if I have a declarative YAML manifest that I can upload and cluster API will take care of deployment of cluster. And even if you have an existing Kubernetes cluster like EKS, AKS, and you can just attach it right here and manage from the NKP dashboard. So I'm going to click on create cluster as part of this demo, and you can get a production ready Kubernetes cluster ready within 20 minutes with NKP. Now I have pre-filled this form just for you. So I'm going to click and some of the fields are pre-filled. Let's say the cluster name, I'm going to call it NKP dev. And this is the infrastructure provider where your cluster will be deployed. Now you can have, AWS, Azure, vSphere. I mean, you have to pre-add that infrastructure provider and just, where your deployment will basically happen. Now this is the Kubernetes version. I'm going to skip SSH username and key. Now configuring node pools. Every Kubernetes cluster has at least 2 node pools, one for the Kubernetes control plane and one for the worker node where you actually run your application. Now to start with control plane node pool, you see that we have an integration with Prism Central projects. Now think of it like, you can enforce virtualization quotas in Prism and role-based access control, like how much resources this cluster is actually going to use, and you can control those amount of resources that it will use. And here it will show the cluster. So if you have more than one cluster, it will show up here. In case of subnets, you can either deploy on VLAN subnets or a VPC inside a VPC. And when it comes to OS images, you have 2 options. You can use the image provided by Nutanix, which is based on Rocky Linux, or you can bring your own OS. In both cases, the image should already exist in the backend provider, in this case, Prism Central. So I'm using Rocky Linux at the moment. That is the OS provided by Nutanix and available for all the NKP customers when they run it on Nutanix AHV, the hypervisor that Nutanix has. And then we can use, categories also, like category use case. Think of it like, you can enforce the micro-segmentation security policies with Nutanix Flow and automate some stuff, with NCM playbooks, the Nutanix Cloud Manager playbooks. And coming back to the IP, the Kubernetes cluster here needs 2 additional IP addresses, which will be required, one for the control plane virtual IP and another one for the ingress service, which will be used by open source project MetalLB for load balancing purpose. And for control plane IP, the VIP has to be in the same subnets at control plane nodes and make sure it's not already used. And something called as control plane node count. So you can deploy highly available control plane nodes from 3 to 5, where the downtime, is not affordable. And you can also deploy one in, let's say, testing purpose. So I have enough resources, so I'm going to go with 3 at the moment. And same thing with the worker node pool, projects, cluster, subnet, OS image. and categories and worker node auto scaling. So auto scaling, think of it like, in cases of if you have an application with fluctuating demands, the cluster auto scaling can be really useful for cost optimization, handling unexpected traffic, and you get, you can enable it and deploy the worker node count. So I'm going to leave it right here as it is. And when it comes to storage, with every NKP cluster on Nutanix, you get persistent storage out of the box. So NKP has an integration with container storage interface, CSI driver for Nutanix, and you get the storage out of box. And this is where your second IP will come, the load balancing IP. If you have more than one, you can just put start and end range. So in this case, I just have one IP. So I'm going to put it here. And here it comes the image registry, where you pull the NKP images from. So you can either use Docker to pull the images, or you can have a private registry. So in this case, I have private registry. So I'm going to call it registry.local. I'm going to put in username for the private registry and password for the private registry and click on create. Now I just clicked create on this cluster, and this cluster will be ready within few minutes. But by the time it gets ready, we can check view details in the cluster, and we can see, some of the applications that are right out of the box enabled for this cluster. So we have Grafana for dashboards, we can have Grafana logging, we have kubectl for cost optimization, Prometheus for monitoring, and traffic for traffic purposes, load balancing purposes, and then I can just check about the cluster details while it gets deployed. So it is deployed on Nutanix. This is my backend B cluster. It's deployed in hybrid cloud workspace. And if I click OK, this is active. And this is how you deploy a Kubernetes cluster, a managed Kubernetes cluster for your workloads in NKP. Now, coming back to the second use case. Now, we are going to look at the day two use cases like the observability stack in NKP. Now, think that you are basically a platform engineer and you are running an application in production, okay? And you got reported to some problem, like there's a performance issue with an application called Online Boutique, and the payments are getting failed, and you just got started with Nutanix NKP, and you don't know how to basically troubleshoot, or there must be some skill gaps. So in this demo, we are going to see metrics. We are going to see how to investigate some of the logs. And we are also going to see one cool thing, which is like AI assistant chatbot that's built into NKP. So with Nutanix Kubernetes platform, we have comprehensive stack of observability, logging, governance, AI assistant, and ensuring that you have all that you need for the day two operations. Now this NKP cluster has this NKP has 4 clusters. And if I go to my application workspace here, this is my edge application workspace. I see out of 4, the 2 clusters are assigned to this application. And there are some, applications that are already enabled. Now, if I go to applications, I see that this has Grafana logging, Loki, and all those, applications that come out of the box for you that are enabled and getting you production ready. Now, if I go to cluster wide, I see that, these are the 2 clusters. One thing to note here is we have the mix of clusters also, like one with the Nutanix and one with vSphere in a single workspace. So it is possible to, basically have the different flavors of, infrastructure provider within a single workspace. Now, the performance issue was reported in the Durham site, but I'm going to check view details. And then I'm going to check, this is the Kubernetes version, and these are all the applications enabled. But to check, let's go to Grafana dashboard here. So what's happening here is the Grafana dashboard itself provides you about, compute, networking, and storage, metrics right out of the box as soon as you open the default dashboard for Grafana. And it also comes with, list of all these dashboards that you can, just check and see where the issue is happening. So in this case, I'm going to click on my Kubernetes compute workload where my application is, and I'm going to change the namespace to my online boutique application. And there's a microservice called payment service, and I can troubleshoot the log here. Similarly, if the graph is not enough helpful, so we can go back to the dashboard and we can see the Grafana log, the actual logs. If you want, let's say, a log phonetic, and we can check the actual logs for that particular service. Now, one cool thing here is basically we also help the organization in a way that to get you started, that we have something called an AI chatbot assistance. Now, this AI navigator has been trained with our product documentation and support base. So you can ask question, let's say, how do I ensure my etcd is running healthy in a cluster? So you can ask any Kubernetes specific question or any question specific to any cluster. It will give you all the answers that are needed to perform some health checks, run some troubleshooting, and so on. So that's about me. Both the demos, and Nimal, the floor is yours to take the audience through fleet management.
All right. Thank you, Kapil. That was a great demo on cluster creation and what kind of platform applications get deployed along with the cluster. So I'm going to share my screen back. And I guess you should see the demo page, the demo slide, right?
Yes.
Okay. All right, thank you, Jose. All right, so now let's talk about application disaster recovery and NDK, or Nutanix Data Services for Kubernetes, and how it supports your stateful applications. Now, NDK is packaged with NKP. It comes built in to protect. So the idea is to protect your stateful applications, and it offers storage replication to ensure that your data is safe in the event of a disaster. So now if you think about it, currently there's a disconnect between Kubernetes and storage systems. Your traditional DR solutions fall short, right, as they're designed for protecting VMs, protecting machines. A DR solution for Kubernetes should be container granular, because now you can have multiple pods from a single app, which could run on multiple VMs on multiple machines. And each pod can have multiple persistent volumes for each of them. So in the end, what we really need is application-aware data services. Now, imagine you have the entire application with all its related objects like secrets and config maps. All the objects in a single namespace that you choose. How, like, your definition of an application in terms of Kubernetes manifests, and the associated data, the persistent volumes, the PVCs, right? All of it packaged as one unit, snapshot it, and the ability to recover it on your DR site. And on top of that, you can set protection policies as well, right? So for example, you can have an hourly snapshot policy to, let's say, your DR location A, and a daily snapshot and replication policy to your location B. So this is the true power of NDK. This is what NDK offers, right? And all of this can be done by your developers, right? In native Kubernetes language, using Kubernetes YAML manifests. So your developers still have that flexibility of self-service to self-service their DR needs without IT intervention. And at the same time, your IT teams are creating these guardrails within which your devs operate, right? So your IT can still set quotas, limits, right, on how these resources are being consumed from an infrastructure side. So, and now for application backup, NKP provides Velero, which is an open source project that has been designed to simplify backup and migration for Kubernetes environments. Velero can back up both your Kubernetes resources and your persistent volumes to S3 storage, right? And restore it to a DR cluster, right? So many of you might know that Nutanix storage portfolio includes object storage, which is S3 compatible. So Nutanix object serves as an ideal backend to store these backups, right? And again, all of this is available from the same Prism Central console. All right. So now earlier, a few minutes back, Kapil showed how to get started with the Kubernetes cluster, right, and deploy all your platform applications on it quickly to get to day two production readiness, right? But once you have all of that sorted, right, maybe you're thinking about hybrid cloud, about multi-cloud, right? So these kind of multi-cloud strategies introduce a lot of additional complexity because the primary reason is here is that each of the public clouds have its own different Kubernetes distribution, a separate tech stack that comes with each of the cloud vendors, which means that all of them behave a little differently, right? So the challenge here really is in providing a single unified experience across all these different environments, right? Wherever your clusters are being deployed. So quite often what happens is that once you start adopting the tech stack from a particular vendor or particular cloud, you're kind of locked into it. You know? Now, certainly your application is not so portable anymore, even though Kubernetes and containers have this promise of being able to run anywhere, right? So you would want to keep this in mind as you get deeper into a particular cloud or a vendor's ecosystem and tools. And this is where NKP helps, right? This is why NKP is a common set of platform applications, all based on graduated CNCF projects and widely adopted by the community as well, right? These can really help as they help you with application portability. And what I'm really excited to talk about today is the fleet management capabilities that are built in to NKP. Now, you can think about a fleet as essentially a group of clusters. It's a grouping of Kubernetes clusters. Now, with workspaces here, you can allocate Kubernetes clusters to different departments. Now, in this example, you would see there's a finance workspace. There's an HR workspace, which has got a few clusters in it. There's an NKP cluster. There's an EKS cluster from AWS. There's an AKS cluster from Azure, right? So fleet management allows you to centrally manage and operate this group of clusters. So now your features like security, visibility, automation, and governance can all be consistently managed and applied at a fleet level, right? At a group of cluster level. Now, this massively simplifies operations and ensures consistency at scale. So now if you think about it, now your application updates are being rolled out at the same time to, let's say, the 10 clusters in your finance workspace. Or let's say you make an update to Grafana, and you want to make an update to Grafana in general, and this can be rolled out to your NKP, your EKS, and AKS cluster, right, in the HR workspace. So it means that managing Kubernetes clusters and the applications within it across different environments can be done in a consistent manner, right? So whether these clusters are running on-prem, in the cloud, or at the edge. And I want to show this in a quick demo. So I'm going to stop sharing and try to switch to my demo. All right. So here we are back in the NKP console here. So we are looking at this from a platform engineer's eyes, right? From his perspective, let's think about it. Let's imagine this platform engineer is responsible for an edge application that he wants to roll out using GitOps methodology. So in this workspace that we have called My Edge Applications, we see there are two clusters. There's a Nutanix cluster in Durham, and there's an Oakland cluster that is running on vSphere. So now let me click on projects on the left-hand side, right? So there's a single project here called Online Boutique. Now you can think of projects as a high-level construct within NKP. The project is used to manage and group resources, policies, and users across multiple Kubernetes clusters. So when you create a project, it creates a namespace. In this example, there's a namespace called Online Boutique that has been created and federated and pushed out to all the clusters that are associated with it. So in this example, it's this namespace is created in these two clusters, Durham and Oakland. Let me open the project, and I see there is a continuous deployment page, right? So this is the GitOps integration that earlier Kapil also mentioned. It means that when your development team rolls out a new version of your app to your Git repo, which is the source of truth for your application, the code will be automatically rolled out to all your clusters, right? And let's see what else we have here. So I'm clicking on role bindings here. Because role-based access control, RBAC, is built in to NKP. So there's predefined roles and permissions that come out of the box. You can also create your own custom roles, which aligns with your organizational needs. And further, with NKP, you can integrate your NKP platform with your existing identity providers in your environment, right? Through LDAP or SAML. I'm going to click on quotas here. So again, with quotas and limits, you can specify the resources that you want to allocate, both from a compute and from a storage perspective, from a namespace perspective, for how much resources do you want to allocate for your developers within this namespace. And I'm going to go back to clusters, and again, I confirm that we have two clusters here. So I want to see this app now, right? So I'm clicking on the Durham cluster, and I see all the platform apps listed here. Let me click on the Kubernetes dashboard that comes built in, and it opens up the default namespace. Right? But I know that my application is running in the online boutique namespace. So I'm going to drill down to that namespace, and sure enough, I see a bunch of pods from all the microservices that run within that app. And let me click on services, and I know my application is being exposed as a load balancer service. So let me click on that IP address, and sure enough, this is the boutique application that's running here. Great, this looks great. This is running on both the Durham and Oakland clusters. Now, what I want to do is, maybe I want to onboard a new cluster, or maybe decommission one of the existing clusters, right? So it's very easy, right? I can just quickly go here and click on Edit Project. And if you look at it, right now there's the selection here is to manually select clusters, which means we are explicitly setting that these two clusters should contain this application, right? But maybe I want to switch it to dynamically select clusters, which means that the clusters will be added dynamically depending on a label that I add to the project. Now, a label is kind of like a key value pair, similar to categories in Prism Central. So I have added a specific label here for infra ID, and the value is AHV NKT236. And you can instantly see that the vSphere cluster got deselected, right? Because the label is only assigned to the Nutanix cluster. And the application, once I hit save, this application is going to get removed from the vSphere cluster, right? So let me hit save here. And once I hit save and come back to the projects page, I can see that there's in the clusters page, the vSphere cluster has been removed, right? The application only exists in my Durham cluster. Now what I could do is I could come back to clusters and quickly create a new cluster. Let me add a new cluster. In this case, this cluster is going to be in EMEA, in Amsterdam. And all I have to do is ensure that as I create a cluster, ensure that that label is tagged to this cluster as well. And while the cluster is provisioning, I can quickly come back to projects and see that, hey, now this EMEA Amsterdam cluster is being added to the project, right? And I can drill down to the project and see that the vSphere cluster got removed, and instead I have the new EMEA cluster running on Nutanix. Now this is really powerful, right? So which means that as long as the cluster has got that tag, that label, the application gets rolled out to that cluster. it doesn't matter if it's one cluster, right? Because I could add one cluster, 10 clusters, 50 clusters, whether it's an NKP cluster running on-prem or an EKS cluster on AWS, the application gets rolled out. And that is the true power of fleet management, which means that if you're a company, as a company, if you have multiple development teams working on different microservices, each team can be assigned a project within NKP, right? So this ensures that each team gets access to its own set of namespaces, resources, and policies. Now you could have a workspace admin or a tenant admin that retains control over all the clusters in that workspace. But then you also have a global admin, who can retain control over your cluster-wide governance. All right, so I'm going to switch back to my deck. Right, and yes. Just, all right, yeah. So, yeah, that was about fleet management, right? Oops, back and all right. So we've seen a little bit of projects and workspaces, and we saw how they're key components in building a true MSP grade multi-tenant stack. Right? Now, if there are service providers in this call, you would find this particularly useful, right? Because there are a lot of challenges that MSPs would face when you build a platform to support your tenants, right? How do you secure user access with the right set of permissions? How do you manage the infrastructure? Is it going to be shared or dedicated to specific tenants? How do you ensure that one tenant is not consuming or eating up a lot of resources, right? So this is where NKP has been built from the ground up, keeping MSPs in mind. You have hard multi-tenancy by allocating dedicated Kubernetes clusters to specific tenants, or you have the concept of soft tenancy as well, where a cluster gets shared across projects. Now, user access becomes seamless by integrating into existing identity providers too. So in this example, you can think of tenant one workspace. All right, so we are almost towards the end of this webinar. So as we wrap up today, I wanted to leave you with the key reasons why Nutanix NKP is an excellent choice for your platform engineers to run containerized applications, right? Now, first we have is freedom of choice. Now, NKP integrates seamlessly with Nutanix, and it's fully supported across multiple clouds, multiple public clouds, multiple hypervisors. No matter where your infrastructure is running, you have the flexibility to run your applications where it makes the most sense for your business. Next is one unified platform. So with Nutanix, you have a consistent platform that spans all your environments, whether your applications are traditional or containerized, whether they're running on-prem, on the cloud. With Nutanix, you get a seamless, consistent experience. Power of open, because NKP is built on pure upstream Kubernetes. There are no vendor lock-ins, no proprietary forks, which means that you get all the benefits of the open source community, of all the innovation that is happening in the community, with the security and the support that Nutanix provides. Now, most of you might be familiar that Nutanix has been consistently delivering an exceptionally high NPS of 90 plus over the last many years. And finally, enterprise class data services. We combine world-class leading storage and data services with the best-in-class Kubernetes platform, right? So this really ensures that your deployments are reliable and scalable. So I know we covered a lot of ground. We have an NKP test drive that is available from that URL, nutanix.com/one platform, where you can take, you can see most of these demos that we showed, and you can try it out for yourself. It's free. And it's not just NKP, but you can try out all the products that we have in our portfolio today. Yeah, so that's what I have today.
Great, thank you. Jose, I wasn't sure if you wanted to take some questions live or you were just answering them.
Yeah, we can take a few of them live, Angelo. And the first one will go for Nimal, and this is related to Ganang question around when they hear about Kubernetes, a lot of things are designed as a microservices, and on their existing application, many of them, they are monolithic running on bare metal or VMs. Does NKP help to migrate those applications from monolithic on bare metal or VMs into microservices in Kubernetes?
Yeah, so Kubernetes is a container orchestrator, right? So which means your application has to run in containers. Now, usually microservices are running containers, but it doesn't have to be microservices, but generally that is the way, you know. So in this case, it would not be applicable because NKP and Kubernetes needs containerized applications. And the second part of that is, does Nutanix help in migrating from monolithic to microservices? No. So currently, we do not help our customers in the migration process. We help you we deploy a production-ready Kubernetes stack, but only after your applications are already containerized.
Thank you, Nimal. Could you explain, Kapil, about if it's mandatory NDK and Velero when you deploy NKP, or they could be optional?
They can be optional. I mean, either you have you can have open source Velero, or you can use Nutanix data services. But again, it's in-house or built for NKP. So data service, I would say, is a preferable option here.
Thank you, Kapil. Nimal, could you explain a little bit around licensing for NKP? How does it work when it comes to virtualized environments, bare metal, as well as full stack?
Yeah, so with NKP, there are a few different licensing models. So if you are on, it's tied to, so the first licensing model is tied to NCI. So if you are an NCI Pro or an NCI Ultimate customer, you would get unlimited NKP starter clusters. Now, NKP starter is already a huge upgrade from NKE because you're getting a cluster API based infrastructure underneath. And on top of that, you can add NKP Pro or NKP Ultimate licenses, for the true fleet management capabilities and the AI chatbot and all that. Now, but this is again only if you're an NCI customer, right? Now, there's a different licensing model where you have the NKP full stack. So this, you can think about it as the entire stack, right? From your infrastructure, NCI, NKP, you get some storage through NUS, you get NDK, and you actually get some databases through NDB. And we have different Starter Pro editions as well for it. And all of this information is there in our licensing page on the Nutanix website.
Thank you, Nimal. Another one for you. We'll take a couple of questions more. When it comes to multi-tenancy, specifically on role-based access control, can we specify the role of admin to a user for a specific project?
For a specific project. So
or
the
in
idea
another word, could we have a project admin in a specific project?
Yes, you could have a project admin who is typically it could be a developer, but it doesn't have to be. But this user would have admin rights to that project, which is a shared resource across multiple clusters, which means they only have RBAC access to that specific namespace. And this is the role that comes built in with NKP.
Thank you, Nimal. Another one for you because it's related to the demo that you did. You deploy an application that was landing in 2 clusters within the same workspace, or in this case, in the project. Could you use a global load balancer over the clusters?
Yes, you could. Yes.
Thank you, Nimal.
Yes.
If there are any questions, please don't hesitate to send them by email. This will get, I believe, Angelo posted on the Nutanix user group website. I guess that comment will be enabled, so they could leave there the question, right? Cool. Over to you, Angelo.
Thank you. All right. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. Don't forget to check out the Nutanix Nation Twitter handle to see if you've won the Yeti Rambler. And also check out the Nutanix community and post your questions about NKP there at next.nutanix.com. And with that, thank you, everyone. Have a great rest of your day. Thank you.